Okay, everyone. First off, I'd like to start off by just thanking everyone for coming out to the Station Park private release. You guys should have all received an information package with some of the details of the project, the pricing, what's going on in this area, but I know there were a lot of questions that people have. People wanted to visit the site. So that's why I'm having this, and again, as you all know, there's just a limited number of units available. So unfortunately, not everybody that wants a unit is going to be able to get a unit, but I wanted to get everybody out here and just introduce the project a little bit. I've also have with me the development team that's come to help out with some questions. So Scott Cruickshank is one of the founders of Condo Culture, probably the largest condo selling force in the area, region, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph, all throughout, and they're expanding all the time. And another team member, Tim Bolton, has decided to also join us to help out. So these guys are well versed in all the new developments, not just of what their projects are, but all the projects in the area that are going up. To touch on a little bit, I know people have questions about the units, people have questions about the development, the construction cost. Is the developer local? What makes this project so attractive? The price per square foot, where are things going in the future, and all that sort of stuff. So, as I discussed, I want to keep this very interactive, and I want people to ask questions because I know privately everybody has a lot of questions. So the only silly question is the one you don't ask. So just make sure, any questions, feel free to jump in. So with that, I mean, Scott, if you want to give just a kind of a little introduction about yourself and the developer, the team, who the builders are, because a lot of people did have apprehensions that, you know, this is a Toronto builder that, you know, may pull the plug on the development.
Yeah, so definitely not a Toronto builder. What I'd say, does everyone want to come closer to the table? Yeah. Just because then you can see what's going on here as well. We spent $300,000 making the tables, so we wanted everyone to be able to see it. So no, I think it's important to talk about Vanmar for a minute. So Vanmar, their roots are in British Columbia, and they've been in Ontario operating now for 12 or 13 years too. Right. Yeah. And they are from Cambridge, Ontario, so all local, so not Toronto actually at all. So they do work in Toronto, but as far as their own development projects, so it's a developer-builder combo, and in a minute I'll tell you why that's important. But they have a division that does land development, and obviously they have their own development, so Station Park is an example of that. But they are also one of the, I'd say in southwestern Ontario, or actually probably Ontario-wide, one of the top builders for mid-rise and high-rise product in Ontario. So they build for companies like Rosehaven, Branthaven, Fusion Homes. So they build for a lot more people than just their own product. And why that's important is they understand, you know, the construction industry and the cost side of the market, which for all of you that, you know, have been reading headlines about construction costs over the last couple of years, the market's very volatile, and it's something that you want to make sure that the developer builder has a really, really good level of sophistication on the construction side. So Vanmar, not only are they the developer, but they have in-house estimators in real time because they're tendering projects, so they're sending projects out to get costed literally on a weekly basis. So they're seeing where prices are, not, you know, on a napkin of, hey, this is the last building we built a year and a half ago, so if we run some quick math on inflation, this is where we should be today. Those developers, to be quite frank, are playing a very risky game on the construction side. So Vanmar's budgets going into the project are I'd call best in class in the industry. So that's a little bit about Vanmar. The founding principal of Vanmar, he doesn't sit in the ivory tower. He's on the site once a week with his staff here. This development, for those of you that don't know, it is the biggest mixed-use development that's ever taken place in this region, and probably, to be quite frank, one of the biggest developments that's ever been done in southwestern Ontario. It's going to, so the site's fully zoned. So for anyone that had a question about the site and the zoning, it's fully approved as about 8 months ago. The zoning came through. Sorry guys, we got people looking for me. But like right now, the zoning contemplates about 2,100 residential units. Could be a little bit more than that actually. And it's going to be across 5 towers. So our model right now that you see here, so this is the development for those of you that weren't oriented. Buildings 1 and 2, 18-story, 27 are the ones that you actually see out the back here. So they're presently under construction. Occupancy is going to be fall of this year. closings shortly into 2023, and then buildings 3 and 4, 36 and 40. The building we're talking about right now is building C that's here. Building 5 is an office building, so it's going to be between 200 and 300,000 feet of Class A office space, very comparable to what you see at the back. If you guys didn't notice who our neighbor is, it's yours truly, Google. They have 485,000 square feet of headquarters, so this is the Canadian headquarters for Google. The reason why they're here, if you guys don't know, is we have one of the best software engineering programs in the entire, globally, I would say. Yeah, so we have world-renowned engineering. The kind of joke when I was, I'm born and raised in Kitchener-Waterloo. When Tim and I actually went to high school together, we've known each other forever. When we were in high school, it was kind of when BlackBerry was really kind of big and upcoming, and computer science and computer engineering at University of Waterloo was becoming a buzzword. But Bill Gates used to come to Waterloo every single year to handpick his staff out of the computer engineering program at Waterloo. So we've always had tech as our roots. I think if you look at the city, really, it's not just tech. Tech's what's exciting. Google's exciting. These buildings they're doing are crazy, but we have a massive insurance industry here as well. So Manulife Insurance and Sun Life are both, their head offices are located here. And we have Wilfrid Laurier University, University of Waterloo, like we mentioned. Conestoga College is also here, and they're very, very renowned school. Now they're, as much as it is a college program still, like university accreditation kind of across a lot of their programs. And what else, Timmy? What else am I missing here?
I mean, beyond Google, it's a robust tech community, right? Myovision, Vidyard, Christie Digital, Sony PlayStation has offices here. Shopify, of course, has a now diminished presence, but they're still very much here. So across the board, it's a hotbed for tech, and many little companies as well that are just in sort of the seed stage that are going to continue to expand and grow us to the next level.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. Like if you look at kind of our roots, when I talked about BlackBerry a couple minutes ago, and the neat thing with BlackBerry, like when I was in high school, BlackBerry was like the thing, and they basically owned the market here, and they were huge. And there's always that risk of like, what if things change? So what they weren't anticipating is Steve Jobs bringing the iPhone out, because that's what happened, and it created what I would call, to a lot of people at the time, they're like, oh, this is going to crush Waterloo. They're going to be off the face of the earth, and it actually did quite the opposite. So what we saw is a lot of the professionals that left Research in Motion, which was BlackBerry's original name, they spun off, to Tim's point, into tech startups. And like right now, like on average at a given time, we have about 1,500 startups in our market at once. So we have one of the only tech incubators in Canada. It's Communitech. It's literally, if you step outside, you can see it from here. So as far as the location, this is what I would call center ice. Like this is absolutely ground zero of the market. Like when I was younger, Waterloo, uptown Waterloo, was the place to be, and for a long time it kind of carried the torch, and now downtown Kitchener is where all the action is. That's largely to do with two factors. One are these guys across the street who have made not just a small commitment. Either Google comes in with a 100,000 square foot office, or they come in with 1 million plus. Like those are their two levels, and they're at 500,000 square feet now, and I know for a fact there's more space coming. And so they're committed to our community here, and I think that's like a really big opportunity for not just Station Park, but for the region as a whole. Point number 2 on location is transportation. So as I've been standing on this side of the table, like the light rail train has gone by already once. The stop is just down the street right there, so you can get on the northbound and southbound trains, which I guess are east and west at that point, but it does shift to north and south. And then right across from there, if you guys can kind of see, there's it's the lot that's beside Google, so just on the other side of the tracks, which would be located right here. That is where our transit hub's coming. So construction is starting this fall, and that transit hub is going to be the home of the two-way go to Toronto. So we're going to have connectivity to Union Station directly from this location. And the way the site's going to be oriented, the grade that we're on right now standing will carry all the way over to the track. So the site looks like it starts to tear down, but it's actually going to carry level across. All of the parking with the site is underground, so we don't have any parking on grade. We don't have parking in the buildings or on the podium levels. So a lot of the buildings in town, you see it kind of build parking on the first 3 or 4 or 5 5 stories. Here it's all retail, commercial amenity, and outdoor landscape space. Tim, maybe if you don't mind, do you want to pull up just the site map super quick, just so I can show that?
Yeah, we can touch on the actual site and the...
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're going to do all that. And then, so basically there's going to be a staircase that kind of is at the end of the site. That's going to be a very easy transition, and elevator as well to get down to grade to where the transit hub is. So it's all intended to connect. So maybe, Tim, do you want to walk through this a little bit?
Yeah, so you referenced, I think, the stairway down to the transit hub up here. So the transit hub would just be 2 to 3 minute walk in that direction. In terms of what we're seeing on the overhaul or overview here, we've got an 18 and 28 story tower. I think Scott referenced that they're already under construction. Towers 3 and 4 are what would comprise Duo. And it's Tower 3 located in the bottom left here that'll be released at present time. So that's a 36-story building. Tower 4 will be 40. And what's really cool about Station Park on the whole is that all of these buildings, and there will be a 5th one up here, are going to function as an inclusive community. So one of the things that we can get to, in Towers 1 and 2, you've got a set of amenities that on their own would surpass anything else that we have in Waterloo Region. You've got things over there like 2 full-size bowling lanes, an arcade, a music recording studio, chef's kitchen with private dining for residents only, outdoor terraces, gyms,
swim spa.
Swim spa, there's a swim spa as well. And so Tower 3 will be able to go over and use all of those amenities. In Tower 3 and Tower 4, you'll bring in a whole range of new amenities. I'll name a couple, and if I miss anything, Scott, chime in. But over here, they're bringing in a new element. So as pricing in the regions become more and more expensive, we're seeing new people consider condos for the first time. In many cases, it's families. So one of the points of emphasis in Tower 3 and 4 was bring in some of those amenities, so we will have an indoor play center where parents can take the children in the winter, let them get a little bit of energy out. We don't have anything else like that in Waterloo Region, maybe in some of the larger markets, but it's new here. On the back side, and we can bring up a visual, there's a 20,000 square foot sky deck that'll serve as a private park for residents in Tower 3 and 4. And what that is basically anything and everything that you could ask for outside. If you wanted to have a hot tub, there will be hot tubs out there. If you wanted to have an outdoor workout or a yoga afternoon, those facilities will be there as well. There will be water features, there's a full-size running track, a dog park, anything and everything. And the cool thing about it is it's all secure and exclusive to residents of the building. So it is very much a central location, but with exclusive spaces that are going to offer residents anything that they could need. The other thing then is people say, well, you've got an amazing collection of amenities here. What about cost? And people like to ask about condo fees, right? So we've got buildings in town that have some of these amenities, but they might have 150 units. And those people, 150 of them have to share the cost of a pool. Scott, what's the total unit count here at Station Park?
So the first 2 buildings are 583 and Duo's 931. Sorry, I was on my phone trying to find the remote control to pull this up for you guys. So 931 units in these 2 towers here, which are the next 2. First 2, 583, and the last one will be in that kind of 600 unit range. The next tower is like about yay tall, so it's huge.
So all told,
over 2,000.
2,000 units. And so that's the great thing is
2,100.
amenities are typically underused, and the people that use them a lot, and everybody likes to know that they're there. The one thing that can scare people is cost, and if you have 150 units that are paying for the cost of a pool or a lap pool, that can add up. With over 2,000 people contributing to costs, you can have a community that has unrivaled amenities, something for everyone, but very, very predictable and controllable costs because it's distributed over so many units. So economies of scale would be a huge advantage for residents at Station Park.
Yeah, and so this is a rendering, guys, of the sky deck, just so you guys can get an idea. So like Tim mentioned, 20,000 square feet. There's everything from a running track to an outdoor kids playground, fire pits, outdoor gym amenities like yoga deck, lounge seating. So it really is kind of that private park, and it's located on the 4th floor, so it actually will have like quite nice views out to downtown Kitchener. It's all south facing as well, so we'll have sun on it all day long. So yeah, I think as we kind of navigate this site and talk about, what makes Station Park exciting compared to the next condo building, we designed Station Park. So I was a part part of the design team. So before this project even came to market, phase one, I was working on it for about a year and a half. So I'd say my level of engagement and knowledge of it would be kind of second to none. Like it's something that we poured a ton of heart and soul into, and the whole goal was to create not just another condo building, which there's lots of them in the city, and there's lots of good ones, but what we wanted to create here is a community and something that people can literally, you could put a bubble around it, and it could be self-contained on its own. So we'll have everything from, you know, grocery stores, so full-service grocery stores coming to the site. That'll be on the main floor of the office building, so 25,000 square foot grocer. We're going to have restaurants, you know, grocery, like I mentioned.
Skating rink.
Yeah, oh, those amenities too, but like just the retail amenities are going to be robust. There's coffee shops. There's a massive outdoor skating rink. So Tim, if you can jump back.
I was going to show that because you're talking about.
This is good for sure. So this will show you guys what the retail vantage looks like. So this is from the first phase. So if you walk outside after, like all of this is built right now. Obviously the landscaping's not done, but you'll see the facade. The retail space inside doesn't feel like something that's from Waterloo. Like the ceilings are 25 feet in the retail space, feels really grand, something that's not typical in our market. And then what we've shown here, so you guys probably noticed Jacob Kaufman, who was the original landowner here, he operated the Kaufman Loft, or the Kaufman rubber factory down the street that you can see here. So that's been converted into residential units back in 2006, 2007. But he also had a lumber mill that operated on this site, and this dates way back to the 1800s, like quite a long time ago. But Jacob's house was that building that's still on site. And so you'll see it on the site plan, and it looks dwarfed compared to all of these buildings, but it is a heritage building and it is staying. It's going to be connected by an underground elevator to be able to service it. So we're building an extension onto the back of the site, and it was that kind of glass box, Tim, that you had up on the last rendering. But the goal for this would be to operate as like a wine bar meets high-end restaurant, social house kind of vibe, like a Soho House concept, if you guys have ever been there in Toronto. And then this, like Shawn also referenced an outdoor skating rink. So the one thing with retail, retail's great, but in the winter, everyone wants to stay at home and they don't want to engage with retail, and that can be, you know, not only kind of remove the vibrancy from the area, but also can be hard on the retail vendors to be able to kind of keep business going. So no different than if you guys go to Collingwood to Blue Mountain, like the village always feels great. I would argue that it feels better in the winter than it does in the summer. You have the après-ski vibe, all of that. So what we wanted to do here is bring in an amenity that would actually make Station Park a place where not just residents would come in the winter, but the community would. So this, you can see it shaded slightly lighter. It's basically a recessed area of paving stones that can be flooded. So in the winter, we'll be operating a skating rink here that's going to be open to the public. That's going to be the size of an Olympic race, like running track. So you can see the size of a human, and this whole thing will be somewhere you can bring your kids, bring your significant other, and do like an evening skate. And it's going to be lit for nighttime. The restaurants and everything will be open. So it's going to create a vibrancy that, like, quite frankly, we don't have in our market here. So something that's very, very, very unique.
Yeah, and just to jump on that, what I would say is, like, we've got a lot of really great buildings in town, but they're sort of standalone entities. And in places where you do have a little cluster of buildings, they don't have that retail base. So here, if you think about the restaurants and shops, you want to grab dinner, you want to get your hair cut, whatever you need, it's going to be on site. With the grocery store coming in over here, and we don't know who it'll be. I've heard it could be like they're looking at Whole Foods. It could be Sobeys wanting in with a farm boy, but you will get full-size grocery on site, and that's something that in the downtown core in particular has been lacking. Tie in the skating rink in a really nice park-like environment, and you do have a true community feel. And I think that that's a great thing for residents. If you have people that are willing to come into that area, now you start to get the type of restaurants that people actually want to eat at, right? That'll come here. And that's long been a criticism of Kitchener downtown. If you don't have the density, you can't support those businesses. So on its own, we think Station Park stands well positioned to do that.
So this just, I didn't know there was music to this. It's quite funny. Threw me off guard. So if you guys look at where the transit hub is, this is what's coming to that corner. So just literally right down the street, and this is where the two-way all-day go is going to be. talk to me quite a bit. I can't turn it down.
So the Union Station basically out Kitchener.
It's quite impressive, actually. Sorry, I was very much so thrown off by the level and intensity of the volume of that.
Just,
Yeah.
this has come up in the past.
Yeah.
So I know the amenities are going to be great and, second class to none in the region. Sometimes some amenities get dropped off as the project goes on. Is that something that could possibly happen here at Station Park?
Well, like what we see in buildings, and this happens like quite often in the market with a standalone tower, and again, going back to builders or developers that don't have a good handle on construction costs, there's something called value engineering. Does anyone know what that is? Yeah. So basically, like a project gets sold, it then gets costed, and then when they realize that they undershot the cost, they go through an exercise called value engineering. So that may mean you take a light fixture that was supposed to go into a unit instead of being light fixture A, it's light fixture B, and there's cost savings. Sometimes what you'll see is like an amenity space, you're like, hey, that really cool amenity space, that's now a unit, so now we're going to convert that to a unit. So what I would say is absolutely, Dave, in the market we've seen buildings that have value engineered. What I would say is when when they did the costing of this project, it's done at such a detailed level that I think actually, I'll use Caroline Street. Is anyone from Kitchener-Waterloo? Do you guys know the Caroline Street private residences project uptown Waterloo? So it is bar none the nicest condo that's ever been built in this city. Vanmar was the builder. They were also the developer. We were a part of the team there as well. And if you walk through that building, whatever we showed in renderings, it actually is better in real life. So it's one of the first times in Tim, we kind of not laughed, but it's always, when you generally see the building compared to renderings, it's always like, it's close, but not exact. They actually went above and beyond. So when the project got close to completion, when they were building out the amenity space, the developer, so Art Van Maren, who's the owner of Vanmar, he said to me, Scott, like, what would make this project a legacy? Obviously, like, it's great, but like, is there something we could do now to make it even greater? And I said, well, there's ABC items that we could do to just elevate the common element space as a whole. And he invested another $500,000 near the end of the project just to make it better for the owners. And again, for him, he's not a one-hit wonder. And I think that's also important to note. Vanmar has a pipeline of about 4,500 units right now in Kitchener-Waterloo. They have very, very prominent land holdings that are in close proximity to this site, and they plan on being here for the long run. So this isn't we're going to do one project and then take off into the hills. It's very much so a commitment to the community.
So another question, I mean, I personally had a lot of people have asked me, the elephant in the room is sort of, we see interest rates going up, the cost of money is going up. We've seen a pullback sort of on the resale side of things. On the new construction side, when it comes to pricing and price per square foot, do you have a pulse on where this will be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now to build the same building? Do you see these coming down at all?
Yeah, so I mean, this is the elephant in the room conversation. I could probably talk about it for 2 weeks. I think if you look at, so all the media headlines, like if you look at the last 30 to 45 days, all that's happened is the federal government has decided they're going to tell every news outlet in Canada to start talking about how the market's correcting, and the stock market's going to correct, the real estate market's correct. They're trying to cool the market because there's been hyperactivity in the market that, quite frankly, is not healthy, and they're doing everything they can to cool it. Obviously, interest rates are one thing. I kind of laugh at the fact that when we launched phase one, interest rates were actually higher than they are even after that last half-point increase. We're still at an all-time low. So interest rates went down because we had a global pandemic, and sometimes people forget that. They were like, like 1.7% interest. That was great. That's normal. It's not normal at all in any world. I think we're still at rates today that I would argue, and Tim, you can probably chime in on this too, are record, they're still like unprecedentedly low interest rates. So I don't think it's interest rates themselves that are having an impact on the real estate market right now. I think it's the emotional chord that's been struck as a result. And I think if you look at the segments of housing that have been impacted by, call it this correction, the bulk of it is single family homes. So if you actually parse out individual categories, the condo sector is actually up right now. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about costs and why the condo market is not in a position today, nor is it going to be in a position next spring or next fall to be lower, and why it has to continue to be higher, and it has to do with costs that Shawn was alluding to. But to jump back to single family homes for a minute, for those of you that were watching the market, like if you take $1 million home that went for sale, what was happening is there'd be 10 people that wanted to bid on the home, and one of those 10 people would decide they were going to pay $1.5 million because they had to have this house. And supply was low. So there was some emotional, like, we have to get this, we need a place to live, and somebody would bid 1.5. Maybe the bulk of the offers were in the 1.1 range. But there was that one person that decided 1.5 was a great opportunity, and they bid. That is the number that got published. And so when we're talking about a drop in prices, now that same home is selling for 1.1, but it was only ever worth 1.1. It was never worth 1.5. And so do I feel bad for the people that paid 1.5? Sure, but if they stay here for 5 years or 10 years, I can almost guarantee them that house is going to be worth more than what they paid for it. So people were paying future prices today to secure real estate. And when we talk about, a 10% pullback, a 15% pullback, it's primarily in those segments, and it's really moving that emotional froth, because as interest rates go up and the headlines come out saying, hey, like maybe prices are going to go down next spring, I'd argue prices are already down today. Like if you're buying today versus 60 days ago, prices are down. As it goes for condos, basically, and you guys, this may be, a foreign concept, but if anyone's been paying attention to construction cost market, so even heard, public, like headlines on that, we've been growing at about 1% per month. Cost has been increasing, and that's been for the last couple of years, and it's nonstop. Like it's time and time and time again, and people are like, oh, COVID's like almost over now, so prices are going to level off, they're going to come down, and the simple answer is no, they're not. At the beginning of COVID, in the trade sector of the individuals who are actually building these buildings, call this the trade base. That base through COVID got reduced to this because a lot of the trades couldn't work. And so they said, forget it. I'm not in this industry anymore. I'm not going to be a plumber. And so I'm going to leave. And so there's fewer trades. And what they've done is they've demanded more money. And this has been across the board. I'm going to talk about the strikes that are taking place in 1 minute right now, because that's a really important theme. But everyone's like, oh no, but that's going to be fixed because we've got 441,000 immigrants coming into Canada. Sure we do. And I was in with a group last weekend talking about it, and someone who just newly moved from Delhi, from India, is now working as a software engineer at Google. And so they're coming in skilled, like a lot of IT professionals, they're not coming in as skilled trades. And so we're undersupplied in that category, and there's absolutely no break or anything happening that's going to help that. So when we kind of look back to cost and talk about strikes for a minute, so right now the unions they're on strike, a lot of the different unions, and as of Friday there was about 20% of the typical workers working on phase one. And the reason for it is the labor markets have the developers with a rope around their neck, basically just saying that we're going to dictate what we get paid and we want increase in wage. And we're not talking about $5 an hour. We're talking about an estimated between 25 and 35% over the next 3 years. So if I quantified that as to what does that mean for a typical building, if a unit is selling for $1,000 a square foot today, just that labor component alone could be upwards of $100 a foot on the sales price, just the labor piece. But wait, that's not it. So the cities now are saying, well, we're going to put our hand out, and they're usually good at coming late to the table when the party's over. But the cities have now said, well, we want more money too, because the markets are booming, everything's great, so we're going to put our hand out. We're going to increase development charges. We're going to increase parkland dedication. We're going to increase community benefits. We're going to increase the cost of getting a building permit. Why? Because we can. So we're running what, Tim? 7%?
6-7%.
6-7%. and take that on every single component that goes into these buildings and run that for 4 years. So by the time these buildings are done, so the Tower C is anticipated to be approximately 4 years from now, just in cost alone, you're probably going to need to sell for 20% more. It could even be 25% more just to break even. So that is where the market's going. So when the headlines say, hey guys, wait till 2023 spring, prices are going to be awesome, there's going to be deals. No, there's not. I think you're actually going to see a completely opposite move. What we're already seeing just based on the pullback. So I think it's important to note super quick before I get into that, how this development is not open to the public. So you can't walk in off the street and buy a unit here. So building C and building D, back 2 months ago when we were planning the launch of this, we were bringing both units to market. C was always going to be done through a very tight network. So Shawn and his family have access here, and there are probably 8 to 10 groups that have access, and the rest of the community do not. We have enough depth in buying pool from those groups to sell this building to construction. So there's 350 units being sold, that is it. There's 450 in total. Once we hit 350, we are shutting it down and then we will start construction. But building D, it's important to note that was originally going to go to the public, and now we're not launching it. And I can tell you, not only, so, and someone say, well, why wouldn't you launch it? It's such a great project. There's market risk right now, right? As the media continues to put headlines up saying, hey, like prices are going to fall, you've got buyers out there that are saying, maybe I'll wait till spring of 2023 and get a better price. No problem. We'll see you in 2023 with Tower D, and prices could very well be 30 or 40,000 more when we launch it. And the other thing that's happening, that portfolio of 4,000 units I mentioned that Vanmar has, we've taken the whole portfolio and frozen it. Vanmar is a very well-funded group. Like, they have their own money, they play with their own equity, they don't have high interest debt on any land, they own this site free and clear, and they can wait, there's no pressure. So the federal government puts pressure on interest rates and tries to cool the housing market. Developers don't build more, they don't run to bring more supply. Fundamentally, our market has been so strong because of the lack of supply, and that's the one thing that through this interest rate increase, nothing's changing. There's no new supply. There's actually going to be less supply. And I can tell you, because we're involved with almost every major development in this market, and I can tell you that a lot of the developments are not going to get built because they've hit a stall. So they've come to market publicly and they've said, we're available for sale. And maybe it's because the site is a B location and not a AAA location like Station Park, or maybe it's because they were trying to add some emotional pricing into their pricing model because the market was hot and they thought, we'll take a little bit of gravy here when we can get it. Maybe it's a variety of those factors, but long story short, not every building is going to go. And what's going to happen in the midterm, we're going to see if we think we have a supply glut or issue today, wait till 3 or 4 years from now when all of those buildings were anticipated to be done and brought online. It's going to be a massive issue. So I mean, that's my long-winded story on to answer your question, Shawn. But pricing it has to go up based on cost base alone. So the margin here is at the point where the banks will fund it, and there isn't. I built the pro forma. I built half of the pro forma for this site. Vanmar built the cost side. I built the revenue model, and they are making exactly what they need for the banks to say, we'll lend you money to build this building. There isn't any gravy built into this location, where I can tell you the bulk of other projects in this city still have that emotional froth. Did anyone hear about Tech Towers in the room? So it was a very highly publicized launch.
Explosively publicized.
Yeah.
Explosively, in about February. So it's located right here. Great location, 30 Francis Street. So they came out to the market when the market was nuts. And they thought, hey, this is a great opportunity. We've got a great location. And really, we should be more expensive on the cost side based on the quality of our buildings compared to Francis. But what they decided to do has come out and they were going to take advantage of the buying community. And they launched the building at about $1,200 or $1,250 a square foot. By the time they were done, they had prices upwards of $1,500, $1,600 a foot. Like, there's some projects in Toronto that you can get for that price. Now, you're not with an equivalent location to Station Park. You're probably more like $1,650, $1,700 in Toronto. But they had units there that were selling for $1,500 or $1,600 a foot. Now, one may say, well, like, what's the catch? Like, there must have been something special. And no, there wasn't. They just decided they were going to take advantage and build in that emotional froth. And what I can tell you is, like, I hope that building gets built. We don't know how far along sales got. I think that's still a TBD. But I think that the important thing is, like, there's product in this market that is sold for that. We're sitting, like, unit only revenue on a comparative basis. We're like 30, 40, 50% less than 30 Francis Street. And one would say, but you're way better. Like, the project is it's a higher end building, it's a better builder, it's a better community. Why would you be less? And it's because the developer's not looking to take advantage of the buying community. They want to build this building, they want to go to the next, they want to go to the next, they want to go to the next, and continue.
I think a valid point, Scott, you're kind of leaning into it, is that Vanmar builders continue with Vanmar. So they're not looking to pop up, sell something at high prices and then disappear for 5 years, come back and do it again. They're using each of their buildings as a job interview to sell their next building. So a lot of the people that we interact with that have to have a unit at Station Park bought at Caroline, or they bought at Blackstone, which Vanmar was the construction company on, and they've experienced the quality. They know that the builder says this is what you'll get, and then you actually get it, right? So Vanmar's not looking to cut any corners that could lead to negative feelings. They're looking to surpass those expectations because it might be there or it might be there, but to Scott's point, they've got the largest pipeline in the region, and they're looking to make sure that their investors and their purchasers are going to be there, and at least if not purchasing in the next building, you're going to tell your friends how it turned out and how enthused you are about the product that you got. So that's Vanmar's mentality.
I think another point, key point with regards to some of the new ones that are popping up too, and specifically Tech Tower, is 2 points of note is that Tech Tower opened up carte blanche. They opened it to every single person from Windsor to Northern Ontario. And another point was they were building what we would refer to basically in Toronto as micro units. So they had some units that were 300 square feet, 350 square feet, I think 375.
Yep.
So with what we're seeing here is, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the smallest unit here, nothing under 500
It's 500 on the nose, yeah, exactly. So and on an average unit size basis, we're about 587 square feet. It's very specific because that's the actual number. And 587 square feet, and compared to, like, Tech's average was about 535, 540, which would be extremely small. What we did at Station Park in Duo specifically, which is really important to note, most developers buy a site, they do what's called a massing model. So they'll figure out what's the biggest building we can get on the site, and then they take that floor plate and they start cutting units out of it. And what usually happens, you end up with terrible floor plans and a lot of wasted space, big hallways on the way in. And guess what? Like, you're paying full price for that. There's no discount for hallway they have in a unit. What we did here, because we have so much land, there's 6 acres of land in total, we built the units first and then built the plate around the units. And so when you look at the floor plans, I can tell you there's not a single plan in this entire building that is bad. Not a single one. Every plan is fully efficient, and our units, if you look at the room dimensions and were to look at a competitive product, our 500 square foot units would be very comparable in utility to 600, 625 in a competitor's project. And someone says, how? Well, we don't have the hallway coming in. And who wants that? No one. You're not getting more rent for the hallway. You're not going to get a better resale opportunity for the hallway. All you're going to do is, if your hallway is 100 square feet, you're going to pay 100 grand or more for that, and there's going to be no value. So what we've done is we've been able to create a floor plan mix that would be among the best we've ever seen in the region.
Another key point with this development, and I think Tim and Scott can touch on this too, because they have a pulse on a lot of the other developments, and I've sold a lot of brand new pre-construction recently. A lot of the newer buildings you're seeing are not even offering a parking spot. to units, especially one-bedroom units. But with this particular development, due to the size of the land, the 6 acres, you are able to not only purchase a parking spot, but in this initial pre-release, basically you're getting it at a discount, at the equivalent of, let's say, 45,000 versus 80,000, because with this private release you're getting $10,000 in free upgrades and a free assignment fee with it.
Yeah, I think it's, so talk about parking for a minute, because I think it's important. So we're on a 6-acre site. There's a 3-level parkade that's all going to be below grade. So it's all underground parking. It's 18 acres of parking. It's going to be the biggest parking garage in the entire region, about 1,500 spaces. And if someone wanted to buy a unit with 5 parking spaces, they can have it. If they want to buy a unit with 10, they can have it.
With this release.
Yeah, and no one's doing that, but we basically have the most flexibility on parking out of any project in the entire region. So a lot of these new sites, and you guys may have heard about the Strata project that's uptown Waterloo, they have hit an absolute wall in sales, and one of the main reasons for it is they don't have parking. So their 1-bedroom units don't have parking available. And I hate to say it, like that site's not on the LRT. It's a lot harder to be carless there. But irrespective of that, that makes it challenging if someone wants a parking spot in a 1-bedroom and they're being told they can't have it. Where here, we can give a 1-bedroom, or we can give a 1-bedroom 2 spots if you want it. Very, very rare to be able to offer that. Do you want to maybe walk through like a little bit of, we'll show you guys a little bit about what Duo looks like.
Yeah, so what Duo looks like, and again, guys, feel free, once we're done this, to jump in, because I know people probably still have a lot of questions. So.
Yeah.
Shawn, what would you see value in an amenity review, or where would you like us to start?
Sure. Yeah, we can start with the amenity review and then move on from there.
Yeah, we did Skydeck already. We didn't show the bowling alley yet?
No.
Okay. Okay guys, so just a few examples of some of these really differentiating amenities. If you were to look out the door there, you'd see a huge glassed-in area on, I think it's the 2nd floor. That would be these windows here, with the Kaufman House being down here. But inside of Station Park, it's hard to get the scale, and Scott tells me he's been inside. But 2 full-scale bowling lanes, Brunswick?
Yep.
Saw them? Brunswick bowling lanes came in. You've got the huge lounge area here. You can see outside is a terrace there. If you look closely, you've got a little barbecue. So that's just an example of one very large space that's part of the amenity mix available to residents here. I think earlier on I referenced the recording area and music studio. You've also got a full-scale arcade that's available. Looks like a little wet bar back there in the corner. So as owners in Tower 3, you'd have the ability to direct your tenants over there, or if you were moving in yourself, you'd be able to use them. Again, we have nothing like those in the region at present time. We talked a little bit about the family element. I'm not sure if this was on earlier, and I apologize if it was, but bringing in this concept of new people buying, it's going to be a family environment for some people. And if that's the case, you need to have the things there that people are looking for. Other standard amenities that you'll have here would be things like a movie theater. Scott, guest suites on the property?
There's not, no.
No guest suites. And then you'll also have the lap pool in Towers 1 and 2 that residents can go over and use. Okay. I mean, in terms of renderings, that's probably about it, I think.
Yeah.
Guys,
So,
just a quick
yeah.
question in terms of, just want to circle back to the parking for a second. So, because I'm sure it's going to come up, is let's say somebody purchases a unit and they want to get two or three parking spots. Is that attached to the deed? Is it officially part of the title, or is it something that is considered a separate entity?
Yeah, they're pinned separately on closing, so they are something that can be sold.
Okay, so it's a separate title for the parking spot.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Oh, really? So they can be sold independent of the unit?
Exactly.
As long as you own something, they have to be attached to a property.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah,
you can't
really?
accumulate parking spots without owning a unit.
so it has to be pinned to, it's not part of the title, but it's attributed to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the maintenance fees associated with that are the same as if you have just one parking spot, right? It's just duplicated?
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's I forget what the monthly amount is. I guess it's $49.95 for parking maintenance, and if you had 3, you'd be $49 times 3.
Okay.
Exactly.
Parking spot. So if you buy one unit, you have one parking spot, that's on the same deed, right?
It would be separately pinned, so it would be on a different deed. So you could sell. So if you bought a unit with a parking spot and you decide you didn't want it, it could be sold off to a unit, another owner in the complex, like in any of the buildings that would want to own the parking spot.
Not every unit, I mean, I tell all my clients, of the 100 condos I've sold recently, I think only one person has chose not to buy a parking spot with that unit, and it's being a challenge to sell. So you don't have to buy a parking spot, but from what we're seeing, from boots on the ground, having a parking spot is very, it puts it's very,
I think
it puts a lot of emphasis on it.
I think it's important to note, Shawn, too, the bulk. Yeah, one sec, Gene, if you don't mind. If you look at the buildings that are coming up in the market, there's a lot of them. Like we're doing one right now downtown Kitchener. The parking is zero. There's not a single parking spot. And there are a lot of the buildings that are upcoming are 20 or 30 or 40% parking ratios, meaning there's enough for 20, 30, or 40% of the units to have parking. So it is, in the future, it's going to be something that you see much less of versus today.
Sorry, Jane, before. One thing I don't think anybody mentioned, I don't think a lot of people know, but there are going to be, is it in Tower 1 or Tower 2, something called the brownstones, right? Where are
both Tower 1 and 2, there's 13 along
They're
Wellington.
basically going to be prestigious townhouse units, but there's a very limited supply of those.
Yeah, there's 13 of them.
13, and those are 2 stories?
Yep.
2 floors.
They're about 1,350 square feet, so like executive towns.
And the commercial space at the bottom of the towers, is it going to be mixed use? Like medical offices, grocery stores will be?
Yeah, the plan is to do, like we're hand picking what it is, so we're not just opening it up, like obviously like a Subway would love to be here, but it isn't going to be that. It's going to be like, Tim and I were in a meeting with one of the owners of Lady Glazed Donuts earlier, if you guys have ever been there in Belmont Village. It's going to be groups like that. It's going to be highly curated, like boutique and as much as we can local, not like a Shoppers Drug Mart. It'd be like a Lady Glazed Donuts or like a local, we were joking with the Swine and Vine group. If you guys know the restaurant uptown Waterloo, we kind of said, hey guys, this would be a great place for you. And they said, we totally agree. It would be companies like that that can bring in what Tim and I would argue like are amenities in themselves. Like no different if you live at the Bauer Loft building, you have Vincenzo's and Bauer Kitchen, and while that list isn't huge, our office is there too, we're a great amenity, but while the list is not huge, it is a reason to live at that project compared to a building that made, to Tim's point, just kind of stand alone on its own, whereas the Station Park, we want the retail amenities to be a reason why people want to live here. I think it's really important.
Another question that has come up, given the proximity to Google and a lot of the startups in here, what I'm seeing is a lot of clients are reaching out to me about the possibility of short-term rentals, like an Airbnb. Google's bringing an employee in for a month. They don't want to stay in a hotel. This would be ideal. It's right across the street.
Yeah.
Does that work in this building?
Yeah, so a lot of buildings in town, just for convenience, have said like no short-term rentals are permitted, but the challenge is there's actually a need for it in the market. So what we did here is we developed a licensing system that will permit it, but you have to purchase a license to be able to do it. And when you have a license, the condo board as well as the concierge, everyone knows that your license is active and being used, meaning that there's full transparency about which unit people are staying in for a month or 2 months versus traditional 12-month leases. So it is possible here. There's a $5,000 fee to buy a short-term rental license.
That's a one-time fee?
It's a one-time fee, and then there's a monthly cost when the license is active, and then it can be pulled into an inactive state, where I believe the license fee on a monthly basis is nothing. But anyway, so that's how it's managed, and then any of those fees that are payable on a monthly basis for that license are used towards the management and monitoring of the short-term rental program.
Are they transferable?
They are. They're just like parking, so you could sell one. So if you bought one and maybe you didn't want to use it, there are a limited number that are being sold. The music's good. Yeah, I like that. It is something that you could sell down the road as well, and it could sell for more. So just because you paid $5,000 doesn't mean you can't sell it for $10,000. And same thing goes with parking. If you buy the parking license, so Shawn's probably mentioned it, $60,000 for the parking. And that also comes with a $10,000 upgrade credit and a $5,000 assignment clause included. So really the value is almost like getting parking at 45. But today to build parking costs upwards of $80,000 a stall to build it. So if you want to sell your parking spot in 2035 for $100,000, it's whatever the market will bear. So it isn't something that's fixed at a certain price.
Had a question? Oh, sorry, Jane, go ahead.
Question answered. I know a lot of people are asking me, is there a projected rent for 2025 when this is would be ready? Did you guys do any projections for rent?
Yeah, I mean, the projections are always a little bit subjective because, I mean, I could have guesstimated what rents would be when we sold the Circa project uptown Waterloo as an example, and they're far higher than what we would have even projected at that time. So I think it's tough to look at the crystal ball, Gene, and say, you know, where our rental rate's going to be. Our rental rates right now are almost that of Toronto. Like, so we're getting today over $3 a square foot on a lot of rental properties. So we're seeing one bedrooms rent for, upwards of $2,000 a month, and two bedrooms being in that kind of $2,500, $2,600 range. Based on what's happening in the interest rate market right now, and based on the housing, where housing prices have gone due to construction costs and a lot of other factors and just lack of supply, we're starting to see way more people go to rent, and that's been a huge trend. So one of our staff members, they rent a single family home right now. They were paying just over $2,000 a month when they signed their lease 2 years ago, and their landlord just came back, and I don't even know if this is legal, but they came back and basically said, listen, we're gonna move into the house, which I guess you can do, unless you pay this price. And they wanted $2,850. And I said to our staff member, I'm like, that's robbery, we should call the tenant board. And then they're like, listen, they legitimately, they were gonna move in. And she said, but $2,850 is a good deal because the same type of house right now is renting for $3,400. So we would have had to go from a single family home to a townhome to be the same price. And so she said, we signed right on the dotted line right away. And I said, well, that seems nuts. And she goes, no, but it's our only option. And so I think that's a great example. Like, what rental goes from $2,000 to $3,400 over like a 2-year period? I think you're going to see like significant increases in rental rates. And in a lot of cases, we're already seeing, I would call, near GTA rental rates. And we've always had that. Like, we've been, 60% less than Toronto on a price basis, like on a purchase price basis, and our rents are like 20% less. So I mean, that would be a favorable trend.
Got a question?
I wanted to just ask about the parking spaces, just to Dave's point. Are people allowed to rent them out as well? I know you
Totally can. So you could buy a parking spot and you could rent it to a Google staff member if you wanted to. So the garage is going to operate, it's actually being managed by InPark, so that it's not like an InPark garage. It is an InPark garage, and it's going to be like no different than you'd go to Toronto and you'd be at like Maple Leaf Gardens and you'd be in the parkade there. It's a mixed-use open garage, so there's residential parking, there's people parking for the retail, there's people parking for office. So it's not unfathomable that Google has 150 spots in our garage. That's something we've had conversations with them about.
So it's not a dedicated spot that you're getting?
It's not, but your parking license allows you to park in the garage forever. Right. So it's indefinite.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry. So I wanted to just dwell a little bit more on the cost things, the present value of what the price will look like in 2025. And I've got two questions. That's my first question, relating to maintenance cost. So I realized from the butcher that you've got the price pegged at 58 cents per square foot, right? And take for instance, if you've got one bedroom here, that's one bedroom for 700 square feet. Is that price that is estimated for as of now which can give or take rely upon for 2025?
Like for the common element amount, like the
So
58 cents?
So the last common element was the breakdown
Yeah.
component of that.
Yeah, so the 58 cents, so what usually happens, so there's no legislation, it's a great question, because there's no rules about setting common element, like common condo fee prices. So you could market a project and say it's 20 cents a square foot, and as long as the developer is willing to guarantee it for year one, that's all they have to guarantee. So I can tell you that Van Mar, we did the whole budget exercise, and it actually, and I was telling Tim this morning, it suggested that we could be less than 58 cents a foot. But Van Mar is extremely conservative, and they want it to be a number that is scalable with time. So it is not unrealistic to see fees actually drop in this development as subsequent towers get added. The condo corp is one big corp. It's a phased development. Each building is in a separate one. It operates as one massive structure. So I think the 58 cents, to answer your question, is very reliable.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. But then just follow up a little bit, just dwelling on that question a little bit.
Yeah.
I've stayed in a condo before, so I think I've got a fair idea about how condo works.
Sure.
I would love to see the condo standards and the regulations for your condo, especially as it relates to the special assessment.
Yeah.
There's some fine print right in condo management that I really want to see, and what are those provisions around special assessment, the insurance of the externalities of your buildings, and where do I come in, what's the cost I have to bear as a buyer of one of the units as against what the condo management handles. Those fine prints, I would really appreciate if something like that.
Yeah. So it's usually important. So when you talk about status certificates, so what that is a document that it talks about the life and the health of a condo corporation. So if you were buying a resale product, like something that's been built, that was built 5 to 7 years ago, you'd want to, your lawyer, when you do the deal, would want to request a status certificate. There's no status certificate available for new buildings because the condo corporation hasn't been formed. So what you have to look at, and what's important to look at, so is the condo fees, and look at inside the purchase agreement. Part of the Condo Act, you have to disclose the budget and how the whole condo corporation is going to be formed. So that's going to be more important in a condo before it's built versus if it's done. If it's done, you want to look at the status certificate. How much money does the condo corp have in reserve? How are they trending on operating costs? How is the corporation overall health compared to other buildings? Here, what you want to look at is, are the fees enough to cover the costs? So we've seen buildings in the past where it's like cleaning $10,000 a year. Well, you can't clean for 2 weeks for $10,000 a year. So you want to watch for things like that. And like I mentioned before, there's no legal minimum of where you set the fees. But what you want to make sure is there's enough money going to the reserve fund, and the reserve fund is going to be a very important account where it's your savings account for the rainy day. So 10 or 15 years from now, when there's maintenance that's required in the mechanical penthouse, there's money to do that, and then that you're not getting called for special assessment. So in resale buildings, especially really old ones, they have mismanaged condo fees, and that's partly why everyone's like, oh, there's really good deals in some of these old buildings. I can get a unit for like 400 grand. That's awesome. And it's like, sure you can, but condo fees are like 80 cents a square foot, and they're on the verge of like 3 major special assessments, meaning we got to do the roof, everyone's paying $2,500. We've got to do, a structural repair. It's going to be $5,000 a unit. These are the things that you need to look for. And a bad or mismanaged condo corp can greatly impact the resale value of a unit. So that's why the core condo market, the new buildings, are so much more popular than the old buildings that are cheaper to buy, because the condo corps are because the market's competitive, they're being set appropriately day one, and as a result, you're going to have better scalable condo fees. So One Victoria, for those of you that know the project, if you look at it's hard to see it here, you can kind of see it protruding a little bit out. It's kind of dark gray glass, and there's a bit of a curved glass structure. So that building's been done for how long now, Tim? Like 8 years or more?
Yeah.
And the condo fees have barely moved there. So they've stayed very predictable because they were set appropriately when that building was done. So bike racks are they're almost a bit of a funny, I don't say bike racks are a joke in development, but basically the city mandates enough bike racks for the entire city to park their bike in the development. Like, it's that extensive. There's a huge push on, I don't have the exact number, but it'll be like if there's 2,100 units, there could be 1,200 bike racks. The numbers is astonishing. So that'll be within the building.
One thing maybe to touch on that point, I'm sure anybody who's bought new, so all these new condo developments still fall under the toll Tarion warranty aspect, right?
They do, for sure, yeah.
Okay.
So all of these buildings have a 7-year new home warranty that's governed and managed by the Ontario government.
And before I forget, you mentioned a key point, I don't know if everybody picked up on it. You said they're anticipated, or you have a pulse that, you know, there are going to be a lot of projects that aren't going to go through like this, that isn't going to happen.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to our execution plan. So before we were going to go to public with building D, and we were always going to do this building tightly. If we needed to, we could do this tightly, and let's say we made it 80% or 70% of the way. We still have the entire public launch that we could, in theory, go and put all of that firepower in. What I can tell you, we've only been doing these private sessions like this for the last 3 weeks, and we're more than 50% of the way to our goal. And if you compare that to buildings that have been on the market for the last 6 weeks that have been selling with every possible ounce of ammunition that they have, they're sitting at probably 25% of that number. So we've seen it in execution. This site cannot be compared. It is absolutely the best location in the region, and no one debates that. Everyone that walks in here already knows that. So there's been people, Shawn, to answer your question, that have been waiting for this tower. Right? It isn't people that are coming out of the woodwork saying, okay, I'm now ready to buy a condo. It's like, okay, I've been ready to buy Station Park and I'm here.
Another question?
In the maintenance fees, what's included? Are any of the utilities included? Are the units metered separately?
Yeah, so everything's included. It's a great question. Everything's included except for hydro and water. So those are metered separately, and it's pretty typical. Sometimes you see water included, sometimes you don't. But hydro and water, and so if you're planning on owning this as a landlord and having it as a rental property, those would be 2 utilities that your tenant would be responsible for. So they're not additional costs or costs of ownership, but those are 2 that are not included.
And also, my last question.
Yep.
Is the social house that you have, you mentioned Soho House, is it the same premise where you have to have a membership to?
So that's a concept at this point. So we haven't gone down that rabbit hole. I think the goal would be to have something that would be a dynamic space that would be more than a restaurant, so that people could come and gather. Madison House is a place in Toronto, like the Madison, and it's a bad example because it's more of a younger vibe bar, but it's got different things happening. If anyone's ever been there, different themes, like the Hoother in Uptown Waterloo, where there's a pub in one spot, there's like dining in another, coffee shop in another. I'd like to see something like that, but at this point we haven't made any commitments on the space formally.
And also the commercial space that you guys have, who regulates that? Where would you have to put in an application to have?
Yeah, so the ownership group controls all the retail. The plan is to keep all of it. It may be available for sale at some point, but right now the plan is to hold on to it. But we are working with CBRE right now. They're taking expressions of interest at this point. We're not looking to sign anyone yet, but we are taking interested candidates and kind of having those initial conversations.
I think the important point with the Kaufman House and everything else is it would be very easy to fill the space if you just wanted to fill it. But the point of emphasis for Vanmar is to make sure that every business that goes in, or a social club or whatever it is, will be a positive addition and make the community more appealing, right? And more enjoyable to live in. And so that's why they're not in a hurry to make a commitment. They have had groups trying to secure that Kaufman House, but they want to get the community finished and really make sure they get it right, so it's a good fit that goes in.
So if somebody wants to come in like a medical office or a dental practice, they have to apply through CBRE?
Yeah, so you can, like Shawn could reach out to me and I could make the contact there for sure.
Somebody else had a question? You had a question? Yeah.
Question. So for the parking, it's $60,000, but that it's the $10,000 decor and then free assignment. So if you want to get an additional parking spot, but it's still be $60,000,
$50,000?
No, so what we're doing for any spots greater than 1, so the retail price is $60,000, but we are providing a $15,000 discount in this phase only. So if you bought 2, it'd be $60,000 with a $15,000 discount on the second spot.
Anybody else have, yeah?
Is it a party room?
Sorry?
If I wanted to organize a birthday party for my child, is there?
Yeah.
So like a party room or anything that you can
Oh,
rent.
for sure there is. Yeah, there's going to be multiple residence lounges. There'll be areas that are bookable that you could do private functions. The other big amenity here too, as I think about the residence lounge, because the residence lounge is more of one of those checkbox amenities that you don't talk about because it's in every single building. But there's also going to be a massive co-working space here as well. So if you are a tech professional that maybe has the option to work remotely for a day or 2 a week, and let's say you're at Google, you could actually be here and have an area where you could work that's not in your unit. So it's actually, to me, a very appealing amenity. But this would be the residence lounge, and there's a bookable area of it that's like private dining, where you could have, a birthday party, or you could have friends over for a Friday night dinner, and that'll be on a bookable basis.
So one thing too, I've printed some brochures. There's more people, I think, but if everybody wants to take one per family, and what I really want people to focus in on when you look at that, I've got the pricing for these specific units. Now, unfortunately, all of these aren't available because some of them have sold. I've had clients reach out to me. But you definitely want to look at the final line on the right, which is the total discounted price for this release only, which is where you get the 6% discount, the free upgrades, and the discounted parking on it, and the free assignment fee. So that's the price you're going to want to look in on when you look at it for this release. If you guys reach out to me privately, I can tell you which ones are spoken for. Yeah. So I think everybody had an email where they would just respond to me with their top choices, but some people that right away had responded. Unfortunately, those units are spoken for. So if everybody reaches out to me or somebody from my team, I can tell you guys what units are left and as they're going. Go on. So did anybody else have any other questions? Again, feel free to take a look around. You can come directly to us, ask us any questions that you have. But I wanted to thank everybody for coming out and shedding some light. Again, it's a very good project, a lot going on in there, especially in the area that's unparalleled in this area. All right?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.